This is the Amazing Teacher Podcast with Sam Rangel, episode number 28.
Welcome to the Amazing Teacher Podcast, where we sit down with amazing educators and pick their brains for tips, strategies, and ideas that you can take into your classrooms and be amazing. Now, here's your host, Sam Rangel.
Welcome, amazing teacher, to the 28th episode of the Amazing Teacher Podcast. This is Sam from successintheclassroom.com, and I want to thank you again for downloading the podcast. As you know, I have such a great time speaking with these amazing educators. I always come away with a renewed desire to do what I can to have an impact in my school and do what's best for kids. And in this episode, I have another one of those inspiring conversations with a truly amazing teacher. And I'm hoping that you are feeling that inspiration as well. I'm hoping that after you listen to these podcasts, you're ready and excited to get back into the classroom and make a difference. That's the whole point of this podcast. In this episode, I sit down with Laura Gilchrist. Laura is a Bammy Award finalist and a Christa McAuliffe Pioneer in Education Award winner. She was also selected as Teacher of the Year in her school district, and Laura was so great on the podcast, so great. She shared her insights on teaching, which focuses a lot on connecting and believing in kids and stepping outside the box. I was particularly impressed with what she shares about Edcamp. As you know, I like the idea of Edcamp, where teachers learn from each other, and Laura shares her insights on Edcamp from the perspective of an organizer. What she has done, however, is bring Edcamp into her school, which what she calls a 1-hour Edcamp, and I was really excited about that because that could be done in any school. So listen for that. Laura also shares her advice on classroom management, which focuses on building that positive relationship with the students. And her advice in this area is a must listen for any teacher who may be struggling with that tough class. So listen for that as well. I had a great time speaking with Laura, and I know that you will find her insights and advice very inspiring and valuable, as did I. So without further ado, let's get right into the interview with amazing teacher Laura Gilchrist. Ready? Here we go. Today, I'm so happy to have Laura Gilchrist on the podcast. She is a 2014 Bammy Award finalist, and she's a winner of the Christa McAuliffe Pioneer in Education Award this year, 2014. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Well, thank you for having me, Sam Rangel. I'm very excited to be here.
Great. Well, congratulations on all your awards. You were also selected as the Teacher of the Year for the North Kansas City School District. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you again for taking time out of your day to sit down and let me pick your brain about teaching. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, I am too. I checked out your website. I'm like, why haven't I seen this before? It's a great resource. I'm going to share it at my school and district and, of course, on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much. Well, before we begin, Laura, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your teaching career, how you got into teaching, and maybe why you became a teacher?
All right. I am going into my 20th year in the classroom, which I can't believe. I teach sixth graders, science and social studies, and a lot of other things at Newmark Middle School in the North Kansas City School District. I started... My student taught in third grade, and I thought I would be a third or fourth grade teacher, and I got my first job in Lee Summit in sixth grade in the elementary school, and I have been sixth grade from here on out, and I've always taught science, social studies, a little bit of reading and math, but sixth graders, they rock. They got a foot back in elementary school, that open mind, and then towards the second half of the year, their abstract thoughts start kicking in, they get my puns, my really lame jokes a lot better, So I like that part too. My husband and I have two daughters. They are 18 and 20. One's senior in high school and one's in college. And we have two chihuahuas too. We love our chihuahuas very much. One's a puppy and one's about 4. I tell really bad jokes. My joke that I kick the year off with the kids is, what do you call a cow that just had a baby?
I have no clue.
Yes, they don't know. And so I write it up, and it's decaffeinated, but the calf is CALF.
Oh.
And so that leads into my pun thing. And at the beginning of the year, they kind of don't get it, but they have to deal with it all year long. It's my captive audience. And anyway, I'm into photography. I love iPhoneography. I use Instagram to tell stories of my own and stories in my classroom. We used hashtags on field trips with the kids. I'm a big user of Flickr, and I have a blog. I have a quick story. Quick story about how I got my voice in education. Back in 2011, I went to my district summer academy, and I went to this one session. It was all sessions led by teachers, which I thought was really cool, and I had choice. And this one teacher had a session on Edmodo and all these tech tools that I had not used. And it just started this whole explosion. I used Edmodo that year and all these other things. And I started using Twitter. And once I started using Twitter, I found out that I had a real passion for education and talking about education, which I really never did before. I just, I taught. I worked with kids, but I didn't ever talk about education. So I got on Twitter and found out that I was really passionate about it. And then I started going to Edcamps, and that sent me to a whole new level. And now I organize an Edcamp, co-organize. And the other big step for me was blogging. When I started looking at all these people's blogs, and I thought, boy, I wonder if I could do one. And my first thought was, I don't have anything to say. And I think a lot of teachers are like that. They don't think they have a voice. They don't think they have anything worth sharing. But they do. So I challenged myself. I started a Google Doc, and I kept a list of every single topic that I thought I could blog about or turn into a story. At the end of 2 weeks, I had 2 pages on Google Doc. I sold myself. I started a blog. It was scary, but it's amazing. And I encourage teachers out there to create and blog and get on Twitter, and it can change everything for you. Education, there's so much you can do to help others and to better yourself and your kids. I became a teacher because of my mom. My was an amazing person and teacher. She taught 4th grade forever, and I used to go to her classroom, and she was just a huge inspiration to me, and so that is why I went into education. And teaching career, I'm the voice of the learner, whether it's the kids or the students. I'm an Edcamp supporter, an addict. I've been to 11 Edcamps, and I co-organize Edcamp KC here in Kansas City with Kyle Pace. I did an Edcamp at my school last year. My principal okayed it for 1 hour in October, and the teachers were so energized by this 1 hour of an Edcamp with conversations and choice that at the end of the year, they asked for that this year. So we're kicking off our back to school meetings with 2 days of Edcamps, 2 3-hour sessions of Edcamps led by teachers in our school. I'm very excited about that. And then I also moderate MoEd Chat. We're trying to build a Missouri educator community, and not just Missouri, but kind of the Midwest. We've got Arkansas Ed Chat, Iowa Ed Chat. We've got state Ed Chats, and we're trying to grow professional learning communities beyond just individual, but also at state level and beyond.
Wow. Where do you find time for all that?
I don't know. I'm one of those people. I'm wired. I wake up early. I'm usually up by 6, even in the summer.
Uh-huh.
And I just, I don't know. I'm just driven that way. I always have been.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I really like how you got those topics for blogging, because sometimes you wanna sit down and write a post for your blog, but just nothing comes. I like that idea of just making a list of topics and keeping them on your Google Docs. That's a great idea. I was on my blog. I always talk about teachers need to get out there and blog. I say teachers need to have at least 2 blogs, one for their class, so that parents can find out what's going on in the class, and another one where they can share what's working and what's not working for other teachers. And so I think that's a great idea for teachers to get out there and share what they're doing.
I have one story. Can I share it?
Of course.
All right. I did a blog post. I find that the blog posts I do from my classroom, people are very interested in, more interested than other topics about theory and problems in education. So I had one lesson, and I can share it with you. I call it my outside the box lesson, and I tell the kids to get out maybe a piece of paper and writing utensil. And I say it very vaguely, and they look at me with crazy eye. And So most of them get out a piece of paper, and then I write up on the board, write your name in as many ways as you can. And I say, all right, go. And they crickets. They're looking at each other. They have no clue what's going on. And they start writing their name forward, backward. I mean, they're bored. They're like, what are we doing? So then I make one comment. I say, I notice you're still in your seat. So I, of course, was my iPhone is out all the time. The kids are used to me. I am taking pictures and videos to document and share on my blog and everywhere. So I captured the video before and after, and they, in one of my hours, they seriously all bolted out of their chairs like popcorn. They started writing their name with their toes, with a pencil in their toes, and they started spelling it out with staples and pencils and writing on the board and painting with their nose their name. I mean, they went crazy. So I blogged about it. Okay, I used iMovie, and I showed before and after, and it was a very simple blog post after I did the video, and I tweeted it out, right? So then all sorts of people retweeted it. So I go to school the next day, and I show the kids up on the board, Twitter and the blog post, and I said, you know what? Last year, I did the same lesson, and you know what I did? Nothing. It stayed inside the four walls of my classroom. And they're like, well, that's a shame. So I said, see the power of sharing. We think we have nothing to share. It's just routine. But really, if you take that time and share it, I had all sorts of people say they're going to do that same lesson after they could see it and they saw what happened. So anyway, that's my story of using your voice and sharing.
What a great story. What a great example of the power of sharing it. And if you're a new teacher out there's your takeaway. Get a blog and share what you're learning, share what's working. And you're going to affect other teachers, and you're going to inspire them. Great
Yes,
idea.
they are.
Great. Well, you're talking about Edcamp, and I was reading your blog, and I see that you're very involved in Edcamp and organizing Edcamps. And I know the audience that listens to the podcast knows that I like the idea of Edcamp, where teachers can just learn from each other instead of having to go to a conference and listen to an expert or some district person sharing their thoughts. I like the idea of just sharing best practices with among each other. So can you remind us just what is Edcamp and how it works and the benefits of Edcamp?
All right. An Edcamp is an unconference. It was started about 5 years ago. And the deal is you show up to the venue, wherever it is, your school. Edcamp KC is at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. We found space there and wonderful people. But you show up, and there are these blank session boards. It is the strangest thing if you've never been to an Edcamp and you are used to traditional PD. You show up, and they have the sessions marked. They're anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes usually. And then people just sign up for topics that they want to discuss. They usually lead it, but that doesn't mean they're doing a PowerPoint. It's really about conversations. That's what Edcamps are. So you show up and you write down what you want to lead or facilitate or talk about, and you put it in a box. And then everybody fills them all out, and they always fill up. It's crazy. I always worry about it, but they fill in with all sorts of technology things, anything you can think of. So then you pick where you want to go all day. So if the first session is from 9 to 9:45, there might be 6 choices. You pick which one you want to go to. And you don't have to sign up. And if you want to leave early from that one session, let's say you really want to see 2 sessions, go to 2 of them. We call it the law of 2 feet. You can get up and go to any session at any time you want, because this day is about you as a learner. And that is what sold me. And I mean, it just empowers people. I see people leave Edcamps just like I did, with just this fire in their eyes. They're a learner again. Schools, traditional schooling, when you go in, they hand you all these objectives and tell you all these things to do. It just shuts you down, and you don't have time you don't ever get to talk to people. So you can't get better at things. So the Edcamp model is powerful, and it is easily started in schools because it's free, and it's done by you. You can tell I'm over the top about it, but it works. I believe in it. And I had 1 hour at my school, 1 hour in October, and in May, they all wanted it for this year.
Yeah, tell me about that, because I think that's something that maybe more accessible, can be done at any school.
Absolutely.
Instead of making like a big organized event, teachers can do this at their school. How does that work?
Well, the one that I did was 1 hour, and I sent out a Google form, and I said, hey teachers, what are you interested in? What are the topics that you want to learn about, share about? What is it? So I had this long list, and I tallied them by, I grouped them by which ones had the most hits. And so then I kind of modified it because it's the first time, and when teachers aren't used to sharing, it's uncomfortable because we're not used to it, because we don't do that. We share with our kids, but not with each other. So then I went around to teachers that I knew had strengths in that. I said, would you be willing to lead this session? So then I got them signed up, and people just went where they wanted to go for 2 30-minute sessions. And that was the starter. And then you saw people, they stayed later than the sessions. They usually in PD, people leave. They want to leave because it's being done to them. So, but then we're setting up 2 3-hour sessions, and it's the same format. My principal is setting this up. She bonded to it, and she's been setting it up. But she sent out a form and got interest and feedback, and then she kind of asked people what they would like to lead. So we're doing that kind of modified format again. But as the school year gets going, my hope is that we will do the actual real one where people just sign up on the fly. We're also looking at doing Genius Hour PD, kind of project-based or challenge-based PD for teachers as well. That's something I haven't done yet, but I'm looking into.
Well, I think that is a great idea. I'm in administration now. I'm out of the classroom, and so I'm looking for ways to get teachers talking and sharing their expertise. And I think this is a great way to share our best practices and to learn from each other. So if you would do me a favor, Laura, if you can keep me updated, and maybe a short email, maybe a text, or even on Twitter, of what you're learning when you do your in-house Edcamps. I'd love to just learn from you, and if you have it on your blog, let me know so I can read it, because I think this is a great way for teachers to share their expertise with each other.
Sam, I will do that, and I actually have a blog post in the works about what happened last year. I didn't do it during the year and get that blog post done, but I'm going to do it this summer here before school kicks off, because I think it's a high interest topic, and it's beautiful because it's you can start it anytime, and it's free.
Right.
And it breeds teacher leaders. It gets teachers out, they share with each other, and then they're back in that learning mode. It's pretty remarkable.
And just so it's inspiring, because after a while, I taught for over 20 years. After a while, it kind of that excitement for learning kind of fades a little bit. But when you get in with other teachers, my greatest inspirations came when I went to conferences, but not from listening to the presenter, but from connecting with other teachers and just learning from them and coming away with the ideas for my class. Those were my greatest inspirations.
Oh, absolutely. The conversation is the heart of everything. And we got to get away. We know that in the classroom, it's best to let the kids lead and let them talk and work. We know that's best practices, but with teacher learning, for too long, that has been an afterthought. And it's honestly, I believe it is just as important as student learning. It should be up there as top importance for any school district, is how do we approach teacher learning? If we have inspired teachers in every school, they're the role models. They're the lead learners for the kids. You want that above anything. You've got to make sure your teachers are empowered and able to dream and build and do. And if you don't have that, well, that's not right. That's just not going to work.
Very true. Very true.
For kids.
The purpose of the podcast, Laura, is to sit down with amazing teachers like yourself and pick their brains for tips, strategies, and ideas that new teachers can take into the classrooms and be amazing. And I know that in your experience, you've run across many amazing teachers. Can you tell us, what are some of the qualities that you have found to be common in amazing teachers?
All right, I'll keep it to 3.
Well,
enthusiasm.
You can give me more if you like. I mean, that's fine.
Oh, all right. Enthusiasm for learning is you see across the board in amazing teachers. Enthusiasm for learning, enthusiasm for kids, enthusiasm smiles. Another one is passion. If you have passion for what you're learning, or at least it comes across that way, even if you don't have passion for a certain topic, you're going to sell it to the kids. If the kids watch you, if you're not into it, they're not going to be into it. So you got to sell it. You got to be an actor. You got to be an actress. You've got to come across as passionate, and hopefully it is authentic passion. But if not, at least make it look like it. Then another big one is caring. You got to care about kids and learning and helping coach them and help them grow, not just cognitively, but socially and emotionally.
Very true.
Let's see, other qualities, trusting kids, believing in kids, that kids want to learn and that kids are good is another amazing thing. And innovation, not being afraid to step outside the box and do things differently, using voice. I've been going to, I went to City Camp, KC. I found it on Twitter, and I was really curious about it because, I do Edcamp, KC. So I went to it, and I have been connecting with my city, and I learned that there's a lot of stuff I don't know about my city, and we need to be connected. Like the city world and the business and all the startups in Kansas City, not connected to the education world. And I'm pretty connected as an educator, but we're pretty insular. I'm not connected to my city. So I'm working on that. And one of the things I'm going to is a thing on entrepreneurship and innovation. And that's a big deal. George Couros, actually, he gave a keynote at a neighboring district here in Kansas City on Monday. And he said, innovative educators are the key to transforming schools.
Wow.
So that's
another
big one.
Can you repeat that again? Innovative educators?
Yeah. Educators with an innovative mindset are key to transforming schools.
Transforming schools.
For kids.
Very true. Very good. I'd like to get George on the podcast. I think he'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know that was the direct quote, but that was I tweeted out about that and somebody else did, and it was about innovative mindset. Innovative educators are the key.
Yeah, I think that's so true. A lot of times we get set in our ways, and we think education is kind of static and just what worked 2 years ago works this year, and that's not necessarily true anymore.
Well, I finally figured it out. A couple years ago, I was wanting change to happen at my school, my district, and I found myself thinking, well, I need to get the people at the top to, I need to talk to them and see if they'll start this. And I did talk to them, but, when you have a big district, hard to make change happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So what I finally realized is it's up to me. It's up to me to get things started. It's up to the teachers. So we have to use our voice. We have to speak up for things like the teachers were asked this year, what do you want for PD? And they replied, but they have to start, if they're not asked, even saying, here's what we would like. We're so used to not using our voice as teachers. I find it very interesting. I haven't figured it out yet, but we're not used to it. Teachers are shy about speaking up and thinking outside the box. I think because we just don't have enough time in a day.
Yeah.
All the time you have in the day is just to manage the day. So how do you have time to solve the big problems?
Very true. But I think what you said is key. If the top won't do it, then the teachers have to take the steps to
and then
get it done.
Start that change from the schools, and that then you can shine from the schools outward, and that's where we want to be.
Yeah.
Instead of having the test kind of stopping us, all the high stakes testing kind of stops us from shining outward and really beaming out that positive energy and learning and problem solving. So we just got to start it from the schools and work from there. So innovative educators.
Awesome. I find that the most successful movements are the ones that are started with the teachers, instead of the top down. Here's a new program or a new kind of strategy for teaching. You don't get the buy-in from the teachers like you do when the teachers themselves are the ones that begin that movement.
Same thing, and it's just the same in the classroom. If the kids, if we are always doing school to them, they're not going to buy into it and really, get into that learning, that flow of learning. That's wonderful.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Many new teachers and even some veteran teachers struggle with classroom management. What would be your advice to new teachers who are struggling with that tough class?
All right, I have three main things. Relationships are first. Honoring the kids as learners is the key. We need kids' brain chemistry to be open to learning. And for that to happen, you've got to have relationships, and kids have to be happy. They have to have those happy chemicals in their brain. You have to have an absence of fear. If you create a fear-based classroom, they're not going to be open to learning, and they're not going to cooperate. You need jokes, humor, conversation, silly things, things that the kids are interested in, changing things up a lot. So relationships first. You got to get the heart before you can get to the mind.
Good.
And then second, you've got to have student-centered, project-based, challenge-based learning in your classroom. If you have it set up where you do the learning to them, they're, like you said, they're not going to buy in. So if you set your learning environment up and how you approach, how you set up, learning in your classroom, that's the biggest key, actually, because if you have relevant things where the kids have autonomy, choice, and autonomy, mastery, and purpose, per Daniel Pink, you're going to have, that just sets you, you're going to be on a great trajectory right there. If you don't, if you do stuff to them, that puts you in a hole. And finally, you need to share the routine for dealing with behavior. I tell my kids that, this classroom, I want to be a happy place full of learning and conversation and activity. We'll all have our bad days. And if something's bringing that down or hurting us from learning, then we need to, we talk about it, and the kids agree that, we need to not have that in our classroom. So I have a thing called a Safe Seat. There was a program called BIST, B-I-S-T, here in Kansas City, and I think it's national. But you kind of have a place off to the side, and you just send the kids over there. And they can fill out like a little form, what'd you do, why'd you do it, blah, blah. And then you talk to them later, but they're removed from the situation, and you're not yelling at them. You can just point, and they go over. Okay, they fill it out, and then you talk with them later. It's a conversation. What were you thinking? What's going on? How can I help you? Is there something I'm missing? I read something on Twitter one time, and they use the word sidle up. When you see a kid that looks like it's having a bad day or not interacting well with kids, sidle up beside them and say, hey, what's going on? I noticed this. Just converse with them. Is there anything I can help you with? And then if it continues, you can say, hey, why don't you come over here? And then anything that's bigger than that, that's, office issue is there. But otherwise, for the most part, you can handle it with relationships, with student-centered, inquiry-based classroom, and routines for dealing with, I share with the kids, I have bad days. I've put myself over there before. And you don't want to yell at the kids. I think that's the biggest thing. My first year, I experimented with everything because I could not figure it out the first year. Like, how do you get these kids to listen? How do you get them to do stuff? And I tried the yelling thing out. That doesn't work, and that never works because it puts people in fear mode and it demeans them. So never yelling, sidle up, ask them, and you're a coach for them. You're not just teaching them stuff for their brain cognitively. You are teaching them emotionally and socially. So kind of view your role as a coach and, get them off to the side, work with them, and then you can always work with the parents and your team of teachers if they need further support.
I think you gave us a lot there. That's awesome. I really like that relationship part, and it connects to what you said earlier, that amazing teachers believe in kids and believe all kids are good. I think that is key, because sometimes teachers, they get frustrated and automatically they label the kid as the bad kid, and that label seems to stick, and the kids will accept that label for themselves and for the bad kid. So when teachers see all their kids as good, you can have that relationship and, again, cut down on those issues with classroom management.
I think a problem teachers have with this is that they are given all these objectives that are information, basically. And I saw Will Richardson for only 15 minutes, but 15 minutes is great. He was in Kansas City as well this week, and one slide he talked about is information is not learning. And a lot of times our objectives, like my science objectives, I have like 80 of them in the 6th grade. And to cover, if they tell you need to cover all those, well, then you're kind of harried and hurried, and you've got to cover, and it's like a doing to the kids. You've got to get this to the kids. So the way that they present the jobs to teachers is not it's not set up well. It needs to be big ideas, and then how can we get kids involved in authentic, work to learn these things and hopefully change things in their community. So I think teachers struggle with that because they've got all these things they have to do to the kids, and that in itself defeats the purpose. It doesn't
Right.
make sense for them to help kids.
Right. Very, very true. I taught history and language arts, and there's just too much to cover. There's no way you can cover everything well, and you find yourself rushed every day trying to cover it. And math, I'm finding that math has so much that they have to cover, and everything builds on every other lesson. So if the kids are absent one day or 2 days, the teacher's struggling to connect them back with what they missed, and it makes for a tough road there.
Yeah, the coverage thing needs to stop. It needs to be big ideas because we're handcuffing all schools. Because true learning is about exploring and building and talking and what can we do with this. It's not about taking things in and learning facts to spew back on a test.
Right.
So that just sets us all up at the beginning. So that's where we need these innovative teachers to get out there and say, hey, I want to try this. Can we do this? And we've got to figure something out with this testing. High stakes testing does not work. Those strings need to be cut. Give us curriculum. Let us do some local stuff and let us go and do problem-based, challenge-based learning with our community. I mean, it could be amazing. Right. So I'm working on that.
And we're hoping that the Common Core standards that are coming out will make it easier for teachers to do those big picture kind of lessons and more student-based. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote that maybe has inspired you as a teacher?
Yes. I don't know how to say his name, but I love it. The quote is this: if you touch one thing with deep awareness, you touch everything. And it's by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I'm sure I butchered that. But kids, I know that all of us has an inner learner that is sweet, and it just wants to learn. It's just kind of our heart and soul. And school kind of keeps that locked inside of kids. And I find that if you can let kids dig into a project that's authentic and they want to be in and actually can change the world, change the community, they'll get deep into that learning and they'll experience that joy and that freedom that comes with that deep learning. And that is powerful for me. And I just see kids change when they experience that type of learning, that's that real free, enjoying learning, that they're a different kid after that. They become more empowered. And so that's one of my mantras, is letting them dig deep and authentic for a purpose. Another one that I really like is, because it's about voice, it's by Angela Myers, and she's the You Matter movement. Mm-hmm. She's wonderful. The quote is, "You're a genius and the world needs your contribution." And I have that on my emails, signed on my emails at school, because I think it's so important for kids and for teachers that your voice matters. It really, truly matters. And you need to speak up and just get out there and share and share and share.
Perfect. Those are great quotes. Awesome. Well, Laura, if you could sit down with a new teacher and you had time for just one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Right now, I would say get connected. Use your voice. Get on Twitter. Just get on Twitter, get connected, because that is the key to throwing those walls down in your classroom. You can be connected to the world of people, ideas, resources. You will learn things about yourself and do things that you never dreamed possible. But you have to start, I would suggest, by getting on Twitter. And that's my big thing for every teacher. You just have to get on there and try it. And then for me, I used Twitter and I liked it. But when I went to my first Edcamp and I saw the hashtag, it was Edcamp Omaha. I went to the first one, saw the hashtag used and how much information was on it. I was like, oh, now I get this hashtag thing. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was, I met people that I knew from Twitter. I'm always just blown away by how much my Twitter PLN, Personal Learning Network, is my family. It's like a family. Even though you've not met these people face to face, you're having conversations with them.
Right.
So it's very powerful, just like we talked about with Edcamps and with classrooms, is conversation. But when you meet them in person, like if you go to an Edcamp, oh, how much more powerful is that? It's just amazing. So that is my big piece of advice, is to get connected on Twitter and let it go from there.
That's great. I'm still surprised how many educators do not have a Twitter account, and it's just surprising. But
I agree.
Great advice. And I think I was talking to I had a conversation online with one of my former she was my former student when I was a teacher, and then she was a student teacher in my class, and now she's applying for a position in teaching, which makes me feel really old. But she was asking me for advice, and one of the things I said, be the kind of new teacher that's looking to learn from others. Don't go into your interview thinking you know everything. Be willing to admit that, hey, I'm still learning and I'm connected. I want to get connected. And so I think that's great advice for any new teacher, for any teacher.
Absolutely.
Very
be a
good.
learner.
Exactly.
Be yourself and be a passionate learner and get connected, and you're good to go.
And you don't and this is for all teachers, not just for new teachers, because I'm still learning. I'm out of the classroom, but I'm still learning. And there are times where I listen to these educators like yourself, and it just inspires me, and I want to jump back into the classroom and try some of these things out. There's just so much out there that we can learn from other teachers.
Oh, I know. Absolutely. I've learned so much. I've done so many things that I never dreamed I would have done, and it's all because actually one session at my summer academy at my school, and then Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And Edcamps, I got to throw that in there too, because that was transformative.
So, Laura, what is happening now in your life that you're excited about?
Well, I think I've already kind of covered it. I'm really working on district and school teacher-directed PD.
Mm-hmm.
Working on that big time. Edcamp KC, Mo Ed Chat, trying to build a connected community of educators on Twitter. So not just a personal learning network, but at the state level and beyond. We're doing like combo chats between states. Like right now we're doing combo chats with Texas. So it's MoEd Chat and TextEd, and we merge them and call it MoTex, the hashtag MOTX. And so all this month we're talking about collaboration. Next Thursday, 9 p.m., actually it's 8:30 p.m. Central Time, we are talking about collaborative tools like Voxer. That's one thing I learned about from Joe Mazza, who does PT Chat. I learned about Voxer, and I use it all the time for planning, for Mo Ed Chat, for Edcamp KC, for many other things. It's a walkie-talkie app for your phone. I highly recommend it.
What is it called again?
Connected. Voxer, Voxer.
Voxer, okay.
And you can find me on there. I'm Laura Gilchrist 4 on there. And the beautiful part of it, Sam, is it's about conversation. So Twitter, we can converse, but it's it's texting, it's typing. Mm-hmm. But here I can jump out. So if I was connected with you on Voxer, I could say, hey, Sam, I have a question. You were talking about something, or let's say you need to know the quote. You could actually ask me. It's asynchronous, so I just listen to it when I'm ready, and I reply back, and then you listen to that when you're ready, and it's just beautiful.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Well,
So
I'm sorry. Go
ahead. One other thing I'm working on is the kids started a project last year in fourth quarter. It was a challenge-based learning. I said, let's identify ecology problems in our community, and then you pick one and you do something about it. So we brainstormed the class, the problems, they picked them, and then they did something. So one group was, in each of my classes, was the landfill group. They knew it was a problem, they didn't really know why. So they researched it, and they found all these issues with landfills. And they're like, man, but what do we do? We can't, stop a landfill. What do we do? So they ended up getting, through a phone call, they called a lady at a composting place called Missouri Organic. Mm-hmm. And they called and were so nice. They called 2 different times, and she said, you know what? I will come pick up your food waste at your school for 2 weeks free. They do composting at their facility. And because the kids told them, they said, we interviewed our janitor, and we are 100% landfill in our lunchroom. So every tray that gets dumped goes into the trash, goes into the landfill.
Wow.
And almost all of it could go to recycling, either food, compost, right, or recyclables. And she heard that, and she said, you know what, I'll do that for you. So the kids they changed our lunchroom a little bit, and we had 2 bins. One was all the recyclables, and one was all the food. And our recyclables, we can put styrofoam in and everything pretty much, that sometimes you can't in other places.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing went in the trash. Nothing. So what we're working on for next year is at our school is going to zero landfill in the lunchroom for good, and then moving that out into the school. And then I'm wanting to work with other schools in the Kansas City area to create some kind of a Kansas City school network, because I believe recycling practices and stewardship towards the earth, if it starts at school, it's going to go into the homes and community.
Mm-hmm.
And why are all the businesses doing it? Like, we have a green business initiative here in Kansas City, and they're all having meetings about what they can do, but the schools aren't. And it should be the schools doing this. If that's going to foster the most change out into a community. So,
right,
working on that.
Well, that's amazing to get kids at that age thinking about, making a change in the world, changing society. A lot of times people think that kids at 6th, 7th, 8th grade, they don't count, and the kids seem to get that impression as well, because I taught middle school, and it's all about them. Everything's about them. But when you start getting them thinking about the world and others, I think that's a great lesson that's going to continue for the rest of their life. What a great idea.
I have one story in that I was trying to get them motivated in my challenge-based learning project. And so I ran across something on Twitter, and I told the kids, I said, you know what, this is it. I'm going to insult you right now. So they just look at me. They all turned around like they were ready for it. They're like, what is she going to say? So I said, all right, you know what? You are the leaders of tomorrow. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, that's not an insult. We are the leaders of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I didn't say anything. I just waited there. And one kid goes, wait a second. So you're saying we are not the leaders of today? I said, is that implied in the quote? And they're all like, yeah. And I said, you are the leaders of today. So that's what you're doing here. You're going to do something about these problems. It can be small scale, large scale, but you're going to do something about it. And that tips the scale. That's what I needed.
That's
so
awesome.
Again, Twitter to my rescue.
That's great. And that student, that was pretty insightful for him to figure it out.
Yeah, and once they did, then all the other kids got it.
Oh, now we get it. That's cool. Very cool. So, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we say goodbye, Laura?
No, just I'm so glad to be here, and reach out to me on Voxer if you would like. I would love to talk with you, and just go use your voice, and you can be the change at your school. That's
awesome. So, if people want to say thank you, Laura, for all your amazing insights, because this was a great interview. I got to tell you, there's so many takeaways from this conversation. I'm so glad that I got a chance to talk with you. Where could we find you? Where could people find you to say thank you?
All right. On Twitter, I'm at Laura Gilchrist 4, and that's Gil Christ, Christ, 4, the number 4 on Twitter. That is also my blog. It's lauragilchrist4.com. And on Voxer, I'm Laura Gilchrist 4. The funny thing is, when I went to get my Twitter handle, Laura Gilchrist wasn't available, and neither was 1, 2, or 3. So 4 was, but 4 is like my number, because I was born on 4/4, and my parents were both born in 44. So so the stars aligned, and it's what it should be.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, well, Laura, it has been a great pleasure getting to meet you and to speak with you here. Like I said, so many great takeaways. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
It's my honor. Thank you. It's very nice talking with you, Sam, and with everybody out there.
Oh, awesome. Thank you again. So to the listeners, I know you have received a lot of great information and inspiration in this episode. Now it's up to you to take it back to your classrooms and implement all that you learned here today. So until next time,
be amazing.
The Amazing Teacher Podcast is brought to you by SuccessInTheClassroom.com. Learn more about being an amazing teacher by visiting SuccessInTheClassroom.com or TheAmazingTeacher.com.